A Christian is a person who adheres to Christianity, an Abrahamic, monotheistic religion based on the life and teachings of Jesus Christ. Christian derives from the Koine Greek word Christos, a translation of the biblical Hebrew term Mashiach. There are diverse interpretations of Christianity which sometimes conflict. However, whatever else they might disagree about, Christians are at least united in believing that Jesus has a unique significance. The term Christian is also used adjectively to describe anything associated with Christianity, or in a proverbial sense, all that is noble, and good, and Christ-like. It is also used as a label to identify people who associate with the cultural aspects of Christianity, irrespective of personal religious beliefs or practices. According to a 2011 Pew Research Center survey, there were 2.2 billion Christians around the world in 2010, up from about 600 million in 1910. By 2050, the Christian population is expected to exceed 3 billion. According to a 2012 Pew Research Center survey, Christianity will remain the world's largest religion in 2050, if current trends continue. Today, about 37% of all Christians live in the Americas, and about 26% live in Europe. 24% of total Christians live in sub-Saharan Africa, about 13% in Asia and the Pacific, and 1% of the world's Christians live in the Middle East and North Africa. About half of all Christians worldwide are Catholic, while more than a third are Protestant. Orthodox communions comprise 12% of the world's Christians. Other Christian groups make up the remaining. Christians make up the majority of the population in 158 countries and territories, while 280 million Christian lives as minority. According to 100 Years of Nobel Prizes, a review of Nobel Prizes awarded between 1901 and 2000 reveals that of Nobel Prizes laureates identified Christianity in its various forms as their religious preference. Etymology. The Greek word chi rho iota sigma tau iota alpha nu omicron sigma, meaning follower of Christ, comes from chi rho iota sigma tau omicron sigma, meaning anointed one, with an adjectival ending borrowed from Latin to denote adhering to, or even belonging to, as in slave ownership. In the Greek Septuagint, Christos was used to translate the Hebrew, meaning one who is anointed. In other European languages, equivalent words to Christian are likewise derived from the Greek, such as Chrétien in French and Cristiano in Spanish. Early usage. The first recorded use of the term is in the New Testament, in Acts chapter 11 verse 26. After Barnabas brought Saul to Antioch where they taught the disciples for about a year, the text says, the disciples were called Christians first in Antioch. The second mention of the term follows in Acts chapter 26 verse 28, where Herod Agrippa II replied to Paul the apostle. Then Agrippa said unto Paul, Almost thou persuadest me to be a Christian. The third and final New Testament reference to the term is in 1 Peter chapter 4 verse 16, which exhorts believers, Yet if any man suffer as a Christian, let him not be ashamed, but let him glorify God on this behalf. Kenneth Samuel Wuest holds that all three original New Testament verses' usages reflect a derisive element in the term Christian to refer to followers of Christ who did not acknowledge the Emperor of Rome. The city of Antioch, where someone gave them the name Christians, had a reputation for coming up with such nicknames. However, Peter's apparent endorsement of the term led to its being preferred over Nazarenes, and the term Christianoi from 1 Peter becomes the standard term in the early Church Fathers from Ignatius and Polycarp onwards. The earliest occurrences of the term in non-Christian literature include Josephus, referring to the tribe of Christians, so named from him, Pliny the Younger in correspondence with Trajan, and Tacitus, writing near the end of the 1st century. In the Annals he relates that, by vulgar appellation, they were commonly called Christians, and identifies Christians as Nero's scapegoats for the Great Fire of Rome. Nazarenes. Another term for Christians which appears in the New Testament is Nazarenes, which is used by the Jewish lawyer Tertullus in Acts chapter 24. Tertullian records that the Jews call us Nazarenes, while around 331 AD Eusebius records that Christ was called a Nazarene from the name Nazareth, and that in earlier centuries, Christians were once called Nazarenes. The Hebrew equivalent of Nazarenes, Notzrim, occurs in the Babylonian Talmud, and is still the modern and Israeli Hebrew term for Christian. Modern usage. Definition. A wide range of beliefs and practices is found across the world among those who call themselves Christian. Denominations and sects disagree on a common definition of Christianity. For example, Timothy Beale notes the disparity of beliefs among those who identify as Christians in the United States as follows. Although all of them have their historical roots in Christian theology and tradition, and although most would identify themselves as Christian, many would not identify others within the larger category as Christian. Most Baptists and fundamentalists, for example, would not acknowledge Mormonism or Christian Science as Christian. In fact, the nearly 77% of Americans who self-identify as Christian or a diverse pluribus of Christianities that are far from any collective unity. Linda Woodhead attempts to provide a common belief thread for Christians by noting that, whatever else they might disagree about, Christians are at least united in believing that Jesus has a unique significance. Philosopher Michael Martin, in his book The Case Against Christianity, evaluated 3 historical Christian creeds to establish a set of basic assumptions which include belief in theism, the historicity of Jesus, the incarnation, salvation through faith in Jesus, and Jesus as an ethical role model. Hebrew terms. The identification of Jesus as the Messiah is not accepted by Judaism. The term for a Christian in Hebrew is a Talmudist term originally derived from the fact that Jesus came from the Galilean village of Nazareth, today in northern Israel. Adherents of Messianic Judaism are referred to in modern Hebrew as Arabic terms. In Arabic-speaking cultures, 2 words are commonly used for Christians. Nazrana, plural Nasara, is generally understood to be derived from Nazareth through the Syriac. Masihi means followers of the Messiah. The term Nasara rose to prominence in July 2014, after the fall of Mosul to the terrorist organization Islamic State of Iraq in the Levant. The Nun, or the first letter of Nasara, was spray-painted on the property of Christians ejected from the city. Where there is a distinction, Nazrana refers to people from a Christian culture and Masihi means those with a religious faith in Jesus. In some countries, Nazrana tends to be used generically for non-Muslim Western foreigners, e.g., blonde people. Another Arabic word sometimes used for Christians, particularly in a political context, is Salabi from Salab, which refers to crusaders and has negative connotations. However, Salabi is a modern term. Historically, Muslim writers described European Christian crusaders as al-Faranj or al-Franj and Faranjiyya in Arabic. This word comes from the Franks and can be seen in the Arab history text al-Kamil fi al-Tariq by Ali ibn al-Atiyah. Asian terms. The most common Persian word is Masihi, from Arabic. Other words are Nazrana, from Syriac for Nazarene, and Tarsa, from Middle Persian word tarsug, also meaning Christian, derived from tars, meaning fear, respect. The Syriac term Nazrana has also been attached to the St. Thomas Christians of Kerala, India. In the Indian subcontinent, Christians call themselves Isarite, and are also known by this term to adherents of other religions. This is related to the name they call Jesus, Isa Masih, and literally means the followers of Iso. In the past, the Malays used to call the Portuguese Sarani from the Arabic Nazrana, but the term now refers to the modern Christian Creoles of Malaysia. The Chinese word is literally Christ follower. The 2 characters now pronounced Jiju in Mandarin Chinese. were originally pronounced Quito in Cantonese's representation of Latin Cristo. In Vietnam, the same two characters read Codc, and a follower of Christianity is a Tindu Codicigiao. In Japan, the term Kirishiten, from Portuguese Cristão, referred to Roman Catholics in the 16th and 17th centuries before the religion was banned by the Tokugawa shogunate. Today, Christians are referred to in Standard Japanese as Kirisuto Kyoto or the English-derived term Kurisuchin. Korean still uses Kidok Kyodo for Christian, though the Greek form Kurisudo has now replaced the old Sino-Korean Kidok, which refers to Christ himself. Russian terms. The region of modern Eastern Europe and Central Eurasia have a long history of Christianity and Christian communities on its lands. In ancient times, in the first centuries after the birth of Christ, when this region was called Scythia, Christians already lived there. Later the region saw the first states to adopt Christianity officially, initially in Armenia and in Georgia, later in the Great Russian Principality. People of that time used to denote themselves Christians and Russians. Both terms had strong Christian connotations. It is also interesting that in time the term acquired the meaning peasants of Christian faith, and later peasants, while the term retained its religious meaning and the term began to mean representatives of the heterogeneous Russian nation, formed on the basis of common Christian faith and language, which strongly influenced the history and development of the region. In the region, the Pravoslav faith, or Russian faith, from earliest times became almost as known as the original Christian faith. Also in some contexts the term Cossack was used to denote free Christians of steppe origin and Russian language. Demographics. As of the early 21st century, Christianity has approximately 2.4 billion adherents. The faith represents about a third of the world's population and is the largest religion in the world. Christians have composed about 33% of the world's population for around 100 years. The largest Christian denomination is the Roman Catholic Church, with 1.17 billion adherents, representing half of all Christians. Christianity remains the dominant religion in the Western world, where 70% are Christians. A 2011 Pew Research Center survey found that 76.2% of Europeans, 73.3% in Oceania, and about 86.0% in the Americas described themselves as Christians. According to 2012 Pew Research Center survey, if current trends continue, Christianity will remain the world's largest religion by year 2050. By 2050, the Christian population is expected to exceed 3 billion, while Muslims have an average of 3.1 children per woman, the highest rate of all religious groups. Christians are second, with 2.7 children per woman. High birth rates and conversion were cited as the reason for the Christian population growths. A 2015 study found that approximately 10.2 million Muslim converted to Christianity. Christianity is growing in Africa, Asia, Latin America, Muslim world, and Oceania. Notable individuals. According to 100 Years of Nobel Prizes, a review of Nobel Prizes awarded between 1901 and 2000 reveals that of Nobel Prizes laureates identified Christianity in its various forms as their religious preference. According to Scientific Elite, Nobel laureates in the United States by Harriet Zuckerman, a review of American Nobel Prizes awarded between 1901 and 1972. 72% of American Nobel Prize laureates identified a Protestant background. Overall, Protestants have won a total of 84.2% of all the Nobel Prizes in chemistry, 60% in medicine, and 58.6% in physics awarded to Americans between 1901 and 1972. Bibliography. Etymology. Bickerman, Elias J. The Name of Christians. The Harvard Theological Review 42, 109-124. JSTOR 1507955. Also available in Bickerman, Elias J. Studies in Jewish and Christian History. ISBN 90-04-04395-0. Wurst, Kenneth Samuel. Wurst's Word Studies from the Greek New Testament 1. ISBN 9780-8028-2280-2.